Over the past few weeks, a ton of creators and websites have taken a look at the new Aqara G4 doorbell camera, and most have given it an outstanding review. So I think it's about time that I take a look at it to find out if it's really quite that good. Oh, hold on, someone's at the door right now.
Hello? Yes, I'd like to speak to Stuart of Stuart's Reviews, please. I've been watching YouTube, trying to find videos of Home Assistant, but all I can find is ridiculous videos by Paul Hibbert. It's disgusting. I'd like to come in to discuss it now, please. Will let me in. I'd like to come in and discuss it now. Right, I'm coming in.
If anyone can recommend any decent smart locks, please do let me know. Putting my serious hat on, I've teamed up again with Paul to help share a wider opinion on this doorbell over a weekend so that you guys can make up your mind from both of our opinions. So once you've watched this episode, why not go and take a look at his too? But for now, let me run you through what the Aqara G4 doorbell security camera is. The G4 is packed with features: local facial recognition, multi-system support, free cloud storage, battery and hardwired support, 160-degree FOV, expandable storage, and 1080p recording capabilities. This is Aqara's answer to the smart doorbell market, but is it enough? So let's talk design. I think this thing looks great. It's sleek, it's modern, and has an absolutely massive button on the front that's hard to miss. It's perhaps the biggest doorbell button that I've ever seen. And when you press this giant button, it sends a notification directly to your phone, a sound to the included chime, and a giant glowing ring around the button lights up. It's not as obvious in the day as it is at night, but this thing is pretty cool and adds to the overall aesthetic. Now, the battery compartment sits at the back and is locked behind a small screw, which is a little bit fiddly, but it does mean that it's secured on well enough so that someone can't just quickly grab it. It uses AA batteries, which is also a little more fiddly than other systems with rechargeable ones, but it does have the advantage that you aren't locked into a proprietary system and are able to use whatever rechargeable AA's that you fancy. Supposedly, it also connects to the mains, although personally I've chosen to power this with the batteries, which Aqara do quote can last up to 4 months on a single use, and I'll come back to that in a little bit. But the camera connects wirelessly to the included chime, which is capable of bursting out a ringtone at 95 decibels. So you're going to hear it. But that's not all that this chime module can do. It's actually a rather intriguing device. Firstly, this is where the camera will write all of the footage to, and has a memory card slot on the side for this. This is actually quite cool because it means that it's taken away from the camera, meaning that if someone to tamper or even steal your doorbell camera, the footage will be safe inside the house. And not only this, but Aqara actually give you 7 days of free cloud storage for clips, which is incredible service. So if the undesirables do break in and steal your chime, the footage is backed up to the cloud for you safe and sound with no hidden extra fees. So a massive round of applause for Aqara on that one, because to my knowledge, I'm not sure of any other provider that actually gives you free cloud storage forever. Now, another thing that's quite interesting about the chime is that this is the part that connects to the Aqara hub rather than the camera itself, which only connects to the chime. In a way, it sort of acts like a relay in between the doorbell and the Wi-Fi, and I must admit, I do kind of like this because products like the Ring doorbell, which only connect directly to Wi-Fi through my door and the walls between many different barriers, it suffers from slower connection simply because the signal is weak. So in theory, the chime acting as a little relay on the other side of the door and wall means that you're going to get a much more stable connection. Although, there is a bit of a question mark here because technically it isn't just one relay. I want to see exactly how fast this notification can get to me. Now, simply timing how fast the doorbell takes to notify my phone would be a little bit boring, so I thought we'd play a little game of knock a door run. For those of you that might not know what knock a door run is, if Ryan can ring the bell and escape the garden before I see him, then he wins. But if he rings the bell and I get the notification on my phone and open the door and see him, then he loses. And somehow I've managed to convince him for the second time to let me shoot him with a 50 cal paintball gun if I catch him. Because obviously you guys wanted to see it again from last week's Nurio episode, and not because I enjoyed it.
So I've got no idea how he's convinced me to let him shoot me with a paintball gun again, but we're going to ring the doorbell and see if we can actually avoid getting hit.
That's my phone.
No, never, ever again. This is not happening again.
Just got you.
The last one.
So that short but extremely fun test indeed shows the speed at which this system works. It's almost instantaneous to the chime, and then might take a second more to reach my phone as a notification, which is more than exemplary. On these notifications we can view the footage and see the recordings, and the quality is pretty good. It's nothing to shout home about, at only 1080p for sure, but I do think it's sufficient enough. Fancy seeing you here. Although it would have been nice here to perhaps have had 4K and better HDR capabilities, but again, that's something I'll come back to very shortly, because the overall quality of the recordings are alright, and the fact that you can get a preview of the image of what the camera sees in the notifications too is a real bonus. Now, you'll notice that I'm viewing these previews through Apple HomeKit, which is one of the biggest benefits of the G4, and the fact that it's able to integrate and notify me not just through the Aqara app, but through almost all smart home systems with its deep integration and wide support is fantastic. For starters, it can pair up to Amazon, meaning I can set automations for motion and remote viewing the cameras and receive notifications on all of my Echo devices when the button is pressed. But it also supports HomeKit, which is fantastic for Apple users, integrating seamlessly into Apple Home and also giving the added benefit of being able to store backups of clips directly in your iCloud subscription, meaning if the Chime gets robbed, you still have access to all of the footage even past the 7 days included with the Aqara cloud storage. Now, I've said this before about camera systems lacking the ability to use third-party cloud storage options such as iCloud and Dropbox or Google Drive as a way of backing up clips. So it's great to see Aqara jumping in with this and kind of puts them a step ahead of many, many competitors. Whilst these integrations are good, the real power of this device comes from the internal Aqara smart home automations. It features all of the amazing AI automations within the Aqara system that I absolutely loved with the Camera Hub G3 that I covered in an episode sometime last year. I'll drop a link below for that one. But the thing is, in my opinion, this possibly is even more useful than the G3 for those automations. Simply being a doorbell means it's placed in a perfect position to be able to set routines to trigger even before I've entered the house. And because it has AI face detection, you can set different routines for different people. So when I walk through the door, I can set an automation to do something like this. Now there's an unbelievable amount of settings and automations to play with, and the customizability is pretty much unbeatable. I'd need an entire episode to go through them all. It even has things like the ability to change your voice on the intercom feature, the ability to change the chime ringtones, and even have temperature alerts. But there's a small issue here. And this is something that I mentioned in my review on the G3 originally, and that's that these amazing options and AI features such as facial recognition are still locked behind the Aqara system and won't work natively with any of the standard consumer smart home systems. Yet, of course. Now, the thing is, this isn't Aqara's fault. It's the systems themselves that don't make the use of this extra data. Essentially, we're limited by whatever Google, Amazon, or Apple decide we're allowed to use within these wider smart home networks, which is frustrating. Really, it shows how far ahead Aqara is when it comes to automations, and I hope that they're taking note. I mean, Apple are already now starting to stock Aqara products, so hopefully we may see some form of integration in the months ahead. Who knows? But I said that in my G3 episode. And there's still no sign of facial recognition stuff. Now, there are a few things that I think could be improved for future iterations of this doorbell. Now, firstly, I would have loved some kind of ring light on it. Again, it's not a feature that many doorbell cameras have that I'm aware of anyway, but it's something that I think would be really handy because it's apparent that the dynamic range of the footage from the G4 isn't always the best. Where I have mine in quite a little dark corner inside a little alcove and the sun is behind, often it means the person at the door is quite dark against the bright background. So having a ring light would help even this out and provide added security as well at night. HDR video would have been quite good as well, although that probably would have meant a more expensive sensor, meaning the cost of the unit may have come to a greater total for the consumer. Don't know. But secondly, another thing I would have liked is the ability to charge it from the outside if using rechargeable batteries, rather than having to fiddle around with a tiny little screw on the side every time I want to access the battery compartment. Let's say you keep this in an area of really high traffic and it's triggering all the time, and you haven't got it hardwired, then changing the batteries every few months could get a little bit tedious with this method. You could hardwire it in, but like I said, that's not always going to be available to everyone. Thirdly, I would love to see some better weatherproofing here from Aqara. Although I haven't got the IP rating for it, Aqara do recommend on their website to install it under cover, such as like a porch, which suits most people, but there will be some with no cover at all, which is why it would be good if they provided a weather shield to go over the top or made it slightly more weatherproof in itself. Now lastly, whereas the FOV is pretty good at 162 degrees, I wish the orientation of the aspect ratio was vertical or at least had a rotatable sensor. Now this isn't just Aqara, and I don't know why this is, but most doorbells seem to have a horizontal aspect ratio, whereas I think doorbell cameras would benefit from being vertical so that we can see more or all of the person that's standing at the door. And let's face it, many people have things like porches or alcoves like me, which means that a huge part of the FOV is pointless and unused. I'd love to see that from a company like Aqara in the future, and this is the type of thing that I would expect from them because their innovation is incredible. Now let's talk about the price, because this is an interesting one. Now at first I was a little shocked. At £119, it seems to be on paper among the most expensive doorbells out there, but there's certainly a few things to consider. Now firstly, you won't need a monthly subscription plan. When you look at products like, say, the Ring doorbell, which is cheaper for sure at £70 when it's on discount, you need to remember that this needs a subscription for any sort of decent functionality. So within 12 months, you'll have paid a total of £166. After 2 years, that's £262, so on and so on. So actually, in the long run, although there's a higher initial outlay, it will be a lot cheaper than almost all other options out there with the included cloud storage and the ability to do things like connect to HomeKit. Add this to the fact that it has some absolutely amazingly powerful functionality within the internal Aqara ecosystem. And I have to say that I actually think 119 is a super fair price, even if it's a little bit more expensive than other options initially. I think despite a few of its foibles, like the lack of 4K, HDR, and the initial cost, I actually think that this is possibly one of the best video doorbells on the market at the moment. for its design, for its base functionality without the need of a subscription, the free cloud storage, the operating speed, but mostly for its amazing compatibility with almost all forms of smart home systems. And I hate to say it, but I think all the other creators are actually right. This really is an incredible product. You only have to look at Amazon at the time of this review to see that, because they're already sold out and it only released a few days ago. I know they keep getting stock in and it goes almost immediately. So if you do want to take a look at it, have a look at Amazon link. I'll drop it in the description below. I'm sure it'll be back in stock real soon. But other than that, that concludes my review on the Aqara G4 doorbell camera. I hope you found it useful, and if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Go and take a look at all the videos and links that I've spoken about in today's episode below, and I will see you back for another episode of Stu's Reviews soon. Someone's at the door.